The United States of America half dollar 1971. D is part of the long-running Kennedy half dollar series, one of the most historically significant modern American coins. This coin was struck in 1971 at the United States Mint facility in Denver, which is indicated by the small D mint mark located on the obverse front of the coin just below President Kennedy's neck truncation. The Kennedy half dollar series began in 1964, shortly after the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, as a memorial tribute. The coin's design was prepared rapidly in late 1963 and officially released in 1964. The obverse was designed by Chief Engraver Gilroy Roberts, whose portrait of Kennedy is based on a presidential medal he had previously created. The reverse was designed by assistant engraver Frank Gasparo, featuring a modified version of the presidential seal of the United States. The 1971 D half dollar is particularly important because it marks the first year that the Kennedy half dollar was produced in a copper-nickel clad composition for general circulation after the discontinuation of silver in regular issue halves. From 1964, the coin was struck in 90% silver, and from 1965 to 1970, it contained 40% silver. However, due to rising silver prices and widespread hoarding, the mint removed silver entirely beginning in 1971 for circulation strikes. Therefore, the 1971 D half dollar is composed of outer layers of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a core of pure copper. The total weight is 11.34 grams, the diameter is 30.6 millimeters, and the edge is reeded with 150 reeds. The obverse of the 1971 D half dollar features the left-facing portrait of President Kennedy. Above his head appears the national motto Liberty, while the phrase "In God We Trust" is inscribed in 2 lines below the chin and above the date. The year 1971 appears at the bottom center. The small D mint mark, signifying production at Denver, is positioned just above the date and slightly to the right of Kennedy's neck. The phrase "In God We Trust" has appeared on United States coinage since the 19th century and became mandatory on all coins in 1955, reflecting its adoption as the national motto of the United States in 1956. The reverse design prominently displays a heraldic eagle with wings spread, clutching an olive branch in its right talon and arrows in its left, symbolizing peace and military readiness. A shield covers the eagle's chest, representing defense and unity. Above the eagle's head is a constellation of 13 stars surrounded by rays, symbolizing the original 13 colonies. Around the upper rim is the inscription, United States of America, and below the eagle appears the denomination half dollar. The Latin motto, E pluribus unum, meaning out of many one, is displayed on a banner above the eagle's head. This motto reflects the unity of the states forming one nation and has been used on U.S. coinage since 1795. The 1971 D Kennedy half dollar had a substantial mintage of approximately 302,097,424 coins, making it common in circulated grades today. Despite its large mintage, relatively few examples were saved in high mint state condition compared to earlier issues because public interest in half dollars had declined significantly by the early 1970s. The coin saw limited circulation use as vending machines and cash transactions increasingly favored smaller denominations. As a result, many half dollars were stored in bank vaults or Federal Reserve inventories rather than actively circulating. In terms of collectability, the 1971 D is generally affordable in circulated grades, often valued at face value or slightly above due to its copper-nickel content. In uncirculated mint state, MS grades, prices rise modestly depending on luster, strike quality, and absence of contact marks. Coins graded MS65 or higher by professional grading services command higher premiums. Fully struck examples with strong details in Kennedy's hair and the eagle's feathers are particularly desirable. Because Denver issues from this period sometimes exhibit weaker strikes, sharply struck coins are valued more highly by collectors. The Kennedy half dollar series has seen special editions over the years, including 40% silver collector issues, 90% silver commemoratives, and proof coins struck at the San Francisco Mint facility, commonly bearing the S mint mark. However, the 1971 D is strictly a business strike coin intended for circulation. No proof version was produced at Denver. Proof coins for 1971 were struck in San Francisco. Historically, the Kennedy half-dollar symbolizes both national mourning and enduring legacy. President Kennedy's image remains one of the most recognized portraits on American coinage. Even though the half-dollar denomination is rarely used in everyday commerce today, it continues to be minted annually, primarily for collectors. The 1971 D issue represents the beginning of the modern clad era for the series, bridging the gap between the silver coinage of the mid-20th century and today's base metal coin production. From a design perspective, the coin's artistic elements reflect mid-20th century engraving traditions at the United States Mint. The high-relief portrait used in 1964 was slightly modified in later years for easier mass production, resulting in somewhat flatter details by 1971. Collectors sometimes study die varieties, though major varieties for 1971 D are limited compared to other dates. In summary, the 1971 D United States Kennedy half-dollar is a copper-nickel-clad 50-cent coin struck at the Denver Mint, featuring the portrait of President John F. Kennedy on the obverse and the presidential seal, inspired eagle on the reverse, bearing the inscriptions Liberty, In God We Trust, United States of America, E Pluribus Unum, and half-dollar. It represents an important transitional moment in American coinage history as the first year of non-silver circulating Kennedy halves. While common and generally modest in value, it remains historically meaningful and widely collected as part of the enduring Kennedy half-dollar series The Next Top. The United States of America half-dollar 1972 is officially known as the Kennedy half-dollar, a coin that was first issued in 1964 to honor the late President John F. Kennedy following his assassination in 1963. By 1972, the coin had already transitioned away from its original 90% silver composition, used only in 1964, and from the 40% silver-clad composition used from 1965 to 1970. The 1972 half-dollar was struck in a copper-nickel-clad composition, meaning it consists of a pure copper core bonded between outer layers of 75% copper and 25% nickel. This change reflected broader shifts in U.S. coinage after rising silver prices in the 1960s made precious metal coins impractical for everyday circulation. The coin has a diameter of 30.6 millimeters, a thickness of 2.15 millimeters, and weighs approximately 11.34 grams. It features a reeded edge and was minted for circulation at the United States Mint facilities in Philadelphia, No Mint Mark, and Denver, D Mint Mark. Proof versions were produced at the San Francisco Mint and carry the S Mint mark. The obverse front of the 1972 Kennedy half-dollar features a left-facing portrait of John F. Kennedy designed by sculptor Gilroy Roberts, who served as chief engraver of the United States Mint from 1948 to 1964. The portrait is adapted from a medal Roberts had previously created of Kennedy before his presidency. Above Kennedy's head appears the word Liberty in bold capital letters, curving along the rim. The national motto, In God We Trust, is split into two parts on either side of Kennedy's neck, a design modification made in 1964 for balance and clarity. The year 1972 is centered at the bottom below the truncation of the portrait. If the coin was minted in Denver, a small D mint mark appears just above the date. Philadelphia coins from this era do not bear a mint mark, which can sometimes confuse collectors unfamiliar with the practice before 1980. The reverse back of the coin displays the presidential seal of the United States, designed by Frank Gasparo, who succeeded Roberts as chief engraver. The central image is a heraldic eagle with wings spread, holding an olive branch in its right talon, symbolizing peace, and a bundle of arrows in its left talon, symbolizing readiness for defense. The eagle's breast is covered by a shield with vertical stripes and a horizontal bar, representing the original states united under Congress. Above the eagle's head is a ring of stars, 50 in total, symbolizing the 50 states of the Union. Above the eagle appears the Latin motto, E Pluribus Unum, meaning out of many one, emphasizing unity among the states. The words United States of America curve along the top rim, while the denomination half-dollar appears along the bottom rim. The detailed engraving and symbolic elements make the reverse one of the most intricate designs used on circulating U.S. coinage. In terms of mintage, millions of 1972 Kennedy half-dollars were produced. The Philadelphia Mint struck over 150 million coins, while the Denver Mint produced over 140 million. Despite these high numbers, relatively few entered everyday circulation because half dollars had already become unpopular in commerce by the early 1970s. Many were saved as keepsakes or collected in rolls, leading to large surviving quantities in uncirculated condition today. As a result, the 1972 half dollar is generally considered a common coin. In circulated grades, it is usually worth only its face value of 50 cents. In uncirculated condition, it may carry a modest premium depending on luster, strike quality, and preservation. Proof coins from San Francisco, specially struck with polished dies and mirror-like surfaces, are more desirable to collectors but still widely available. The mottos on the coin carry deep historical and cultural significance. "In God We Trust" first appeared on U.S. coins during the Civil War in the 1860s and became the official national motto of the United States in 1956. Its placement on the obverse of the Kennedy half dollar connects the coin to a long tradition of American religious and civic expression. E pluribus unum, appearing on the reverse above the eagle, dates back to 1782 when it was adopted as part of the Great Seal of the United States. Though not the official national motto today, it remains a powerful statement of unity. Together with liberty, these inscriptions encapsulate core American ideals: freedom, faith, and unity. From a historical perspective, the 1972 issue reflects a transitional era in American coinage. By that time, the United States had fully embraced clad coinage technology, moving away from precious metals for most circulating denominations. The coin also represents a period when half dollars were increasingly struck primarily for collectors rather than for commerce. Vending machines and cash registers rarely accommodated the denomination, limiting its practical use. Nonetheless, the Kennedy half dollar has endured as a lasting tribute to President Kennedy and remains in production today, though mostly for collectors. Collectors evaluating a 1972 Kennedy half dollar consider factors such as mint mark, condition, strike sharpness, particularly in the hair above Kennedy's ear and the eagle's breast feathers, and surface preservation. Coins graded mint state MS by professional grading services can command higher prices, especially at MS 65 or above. Proof coins are graded separately and often display cameo or deep cameo contrast between frosted design elements and mirrored fields. However, because of the high mintage and careful preservation by the public, truly rare examples of the 1972 issue are uncommon. In summary, the 1972 United States Kennedy half dollar is a copper-nickel-clad 50-cent coin honoring President John F. Kennedy, featuring his portrait on the obverse with the inscriptions "Liberty" and "In God We Trust," and the presidential seal with "E pluribus unum," United States of America, and half dollar on the reverse. Though common in value, it carries substantial symbolic, historical, and artistic importance within American numismatics, representing both national ideals and a significant era in U.S. minting history. The next top. The 1980 United States half dollar is a circulation coin struck by the United States Mint at its Denver facility during the year 1980. This coin belongs to the long-running Kennedy half dollar series, which was first introduced in 1964 to honor the late President John F. Kennedy following his assassination in 1963. The half-dollar denomination itself has a rich history in American coinage dating back to 1794, but by 1980 it had largely disappeared from everyday circulation, becoming more of a collector's piece than a commonly used coin in commerce. The D Mint mark on the 1980 half dollar indicates it was struck at the Denver Mint in Denver, Colorado. The mint mark appears on the obverse front of the coin, just above the date 1980 and below President Kennedy's portrait. During 1980, the Denver Mint produced tens of millions of Kennedy half dollars for circulation, though actual use by the public remained limited because half dollars were not widely requested in everyday transactions. Most examples entered storage in bank vaults or were saved by collectors in rolls. The obverse of the 1980 D half dollar features a left-facing portrait of President John F. Kennedy. The design was created by chief engraver Gilroy Roberts, whose initials GR appear subtly on the truncation of Kennedy's neck. Around the upper rim of the coin appears the national motto, "In God We Trust," which had become standard on U.S. coinage. Interestingly, when the Kennedy half dollar was first issued in 1964, "In God We Trust" appeared on the reverse, but beginning in 1964 later in the year, it was moved to the obverse above the portrait, where it remains today. The phrase itself reflects a long American tradition of religious expression in public life, and first appeared on U.S. coins during the Civil War era in the 1860s. The reverse of the 1980 D half-dollar displays the presidential seal, designed for the coin by Frank Gasparro, who served as chief engraver after Gilroy Roberts. The design shows a heraldic eagle with wings spread, clutching an olive branch in its right talon and arrows in its left, symbolizing peace and readiness for defense. Above the eagle's head is a cluster of stars surrounded by rays, and encircling the design are the inscriptions, United States of America and half-dollar. The Latin motto, E pluribus unum, meaning out of many one, appears above the eagle's head, emphasizing unity among the states. This motto has been used on U.S. coinage since 1795 and reflects the founding principle of the United States as a union of individual states forming one nation. The 1980 D half-dollar is composed of a copper-nickel clad composition. Since 1971, Kennedy half-dollars intended for circulation have been struck in layers consisting of an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a core of pure copper. This replaced the earlier 90% silver composition used in 1964 and the 40% silver composition used from 1965 to 1970. The coin weighs approximately 11.34 grams and has a diameter of 30.6 millimeters, with a reeded, grooved edge. The clad composition gives the coin a silver-colored appearance, though it contains no precious metal. In terms of mintage, the Denver Mint struck a substantial quantity of 1980 D Kennedy half-dollars, over 33 million pieces. Despite this large production number, many coins saw little circulation. As a result, uncirculated examples are relatively common today. Collectors often find them in mint state grades, particularly MS-60 through MS-65. Higher-grade specimens with strong luster, sharp strike details, and minimal contact marks are more desirable and command higher premiums. From a numismatic perspective, the 1980 D half-dollar does not contain silver and generally holds modest value above face value unless in exceptional condition. Circulated examples are typically worth only 50 cents, while uncirculated coins may sell for a few dollars depending on condition. Coins graded by professional services in very high mint state grades, such as MS-66 or higher, may carry greater collector value due to their superior preservation. The year 1980 itself was significant in American history. It was a presidential election year that resulted in the election of Ronald Reagan, marking a major political shift. Although this broader historical context does not directly affect the coin's design, coins often serve as small metallic time capsules reflecting the era in which they were produced. The 1980 D Kennedy half-dollar continues the legacy of honoring President Kennedy, whose image remains one of the most enduring portraits in modern American coinage. The coin's artistic style reflects the mid-20th century engraving tradition of the United States Mint, balancing realism with symbolic national imagery. Though no longer commonly seen in everyday transactions, the half-dollar denomination remains in production today primarily for collectors and limited circulation needs. In summary, the 1980 D United States Kennedy half-dollar is a copper-nickel-clad coin struck at the Denver Mint, featuring the portrait of President John F. Kennedy on the obverse with the motto, In God We Trust, and the presidential seal design on the reverse with E pluribus unum, United States of America, and half-dollar. With a mintage exceeding 33 million pieces and no silver content, it is widely available and generally modest in value, but it holds historical and symbolic importance as part of the enduring Kennedy half-dollar series and as a representation of American national identity and unity. The next top. The 1983 D United States half-dollar is officially known as the Kennedy half-dollar, a 50-cent coin issued by the United States Mint. This particular coin was struck in 1983 at the Mint's Denver facility, indicated by the small D mint mark located on the obverse, front, of the coin, just to the right of President Kennedy's portrait near the truncation of the neck. The Kennedy half-dollar series began in 1964, shortly after the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, and was created to honor his legacy and service as the 35th President of the United States. The coin quickly became one of the most collected modern U.S. coins due to its historical significance and distinctive design. The obverse of the 1983 D half-dollar features a left-facing portrait of John F. Kennedy, designed by chief engraver Gilroy Roberts. The word Liberty is inscribed prominently along the top rim of the coin. The national motto, "In God We Trust," appears in 2 lines below Kennedy's chin and above the date. The date 1983 is centered at the bottom of the obverse. The motto, "In God We Trust," has appeared on U.S. coins in various forms since the 19th century and reflects the country's historical expression of faith and heritage. The design is both dignified and symbolic, portraying Kennedy with a calm yet determined expression, symbolizing leadership during a transformative period in American history. The reverse back of the 1983 D half dollar was designed by Frank Gasparo, who served as the Mint's chief engraver after Roberts. It features a heraldic eagle based on the presidential seal. The eagle holds an olive branch in its right talon and a bundle of arrows in its left talon, symbolizing peace and military strength. Above the eagle's head is a ring of 50 stars representing the 50 states of the Union. The inscription, "United States of America," curves along the top rim, while the denomination half dollar appears along the bottom. The Latin motto, "E pluribus unum," meaning "out of many one," is inscribed above the eagle's head, emphasizing unity among the states. In terms of composition, the 1983 D. Kennedy half dollar is made of a copper-nickel clad composition. Since 1971, half dollars intended for circulation have consisted of an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a core of pure copper. The total weight of the coin is approximately 11.34 grams, with a diameter of 30.6 millimeters and a reeded edge, the grooved edge common to many U.S. coins. Unlike the original 1964 Kennedy half dollar, which was struck in 90% silver, the 1983 D contains no silver in its standard circulation version. The 1983 D issue is particularly notable among collectors because the U.S. Mint did not release official uncirculated mint sets for the years 1982 and 1983. As a result, obtaining high-quality uncirculated examples can be more challenging compared to surrounding years. Collectors often seek coins graded MS 60 through MS 67 or higher by professional grading services. Well-preserved examples with strong luster and minimal contact marks are especially desirable. The Denver Mint struck millions of these coins in 1983, but many entered circulation, meaning pristine specimens are less common than typical modern issues. Historically, the Kennedy half dollar was initially produced in massive quantities due to public demand following President Kennedy's assassination in 1963. Over time, however, the coin saw declining circulation usage. By the 1980s, half dollars were no longer widely used in daily transactions, though they remained legal tender and were produced mainly for collectors and limited circulation. The 1983 D coin reflects this transitional era in U.S. coinage when half dollars were still minted for general use, but were not commonly seen in commerce. From a value standpoint, a circulated 1983 D Kennedy half dollar typically carries a value close to its face value of 50 cents. Uncirculated examples may command a modest premium depending on condition, while coins with exceptional grading or unique minting errors, such as off-center strikes or doubled dies, can be worth more to collectors. However, because it contains no silver, its value is generally based on numismatic interest rather than precious metal content. In summary, the 1983 D United States Kennedy half dollar is a copper-nickel-clad 50-cent coin minted in Denver, bearing the iconic portrait of President John F. Kennedy on the obverse and a heraldic eagle with the mottos E pluribus unum and United States of America on the reverse. Its historical connection to a beloved president, combined with the unique circumstances of early 1980s mint production, makes it an interesting and collectible piece of modern American coinage history. The next top. The United States of America half dollar 2023. P is a modern 50-cent coin struck by the United States Mint at its Philadelphia facility, indicated by the P Mint mark. In 2023, the half dollar continued to feature the long-running design honoring President John F. Kennedy, a tribute first introduced in 1964 shortly after his assassination. The obverse front of the coin displays a left-facing portrait of Kennedy, originally designed by chief engraver Gilroy Roberts. Around the portrait appear the inscriptions Liberty along the top edge, In God We Trust split across the lower field beneath the chin, and the dual date, 1964 to 2023, was not used. Instead, the coin simply reads 2023. The phrase, "In God We Trust," has appeared on U.S. coins since the 19th century and became mandatory on all denominations in 1955, reflecting a national motto that emphasizes faith and heritage. On the reverse back, the coin bears a modified version of the presidential seal designed by Frank Gasparro. This design shows a heraldic eagle with a shield on its chest, clutching an olive branch in its right talon and a bundle of arrows in its left, symbolizing peace and military readiness. Above the eagle is a ring of stars, and along the top rim is the inscription, United States of America, while the denomination $50 curves along the bottom. The Latin motto E pluribus unum, meaning out of many one, appears above the eagle's head on a banner, expressing the unity of the states into one nation. The 2023 P $50 is composed of a copper-nickel-clad outer layer bonded to a pure copper core, a standard composition used since 1971 after silver was removed from regular circulation $50. The coin weighs approximately 11.34 grams, has a diameter of 30.61 millimeters, and features a reeded edge with 150 reeds. Although $50 remain legal tender and can technically be found in circulation, they are not commonly used in everyday transactions. Most 2023 P $50 were produced primarily for collectors in mint sets or sold in rolls and bags directly by the United States Mint. The Philadelphia Mint, one of the original U.S. mint facilities established in 1792, has a long history of coin production and was the first official mint of the United States. The P Mint mark did not appear on most Philadelphia coins until 1980, except for wartime nickels, making its presence a relatively modern addition to the coin's design. Historically, the $50 denomination has undergone several design changes. Before the Kennedy series, the coin featured Benjamin Franklin from 1948 to 1963, and earlier still, the Walking Liberty design created by Adolph A. Weinman was used from 1916 to 1947. The decision to honor Kennedy on the $50 reflected his national popularity and the public's desire to memorialize him swiftly. The coin's large size and distinctive imagery make it one of the most recognizable U.S. denominations. The inscriptions Liberty, In God We Trust, and E Pluribus Unum connect the coin to broader American ideals, freedom, faith, and unity, while the eagle imagery reinforces themes of sovereignty and strength. Collectors often examine 2023 P $50 for strike quality, luster, and potential errors, such as doubled dies or off-center strikes, though such varieties are uncommon. In terms of value, a standard 2023 P. Kennedy $50 in uncirculated condition typically carries a modest premium above face value, especially if kept in original mint packaging. Proof versions, which are specially struck for collectors with mirror-like fields and frosted designs, are produced at the San Francisco Mint and carry an S Mint mark, distinguishing them from the Philadelphia issue. The $50 remains a symbol of mid-20th century American history and enduring national identity. Even though it circulates less frequently than quarters or dimes, the 2023 P issue continues the tradition of honoring President Kennedy while preserving the classic heraldic eagle reverse and the enduring mottos that have defined United States coinage for generations.